Welcome everyone. My name is Caitlin Nick. I'm here with the Open Door series. Today is day 2 of our series. Excited to welcome Tara Bach to present today. The Open Door series is a program that is hosted by Art Friends, which I started in 2021 to provide a space where artists can connect and grow in community. It's a membership platform. We also host classes, mentorship services. I designed the Open Door series to be a week-long session, daily sessions with speakers on topics of art, life, and business. So we're ending the week with an in-person party at Lively Beer Works from 6 to 9 on Saturday. And you're all welcome to come and meet the Art Friends community. This project is hosted by Art Friends and supported by the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition. And we have Ariana here today to talk a little bit about it. It's through their Thrive Grants project, which is in partnership with the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. So Ariana, do you want to chat a little bit about OVAC?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm also just excited to also tune into the week-long series and get to see all the different things that everyone's talking about, because I think there's some great topics that are on the lineup for this week. But yeah, my name is Ariana. I'm also based in Oklahoma City and I work at the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition. And we are a local nonprofit that our mission is to grow and develop the visual arts community here in Oklahoma. And we do work across the entire state of Oklahoma. And like Caitlin said, her project is partially funded by a Thrive grant that is in partnership with the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. And they're also doing amazing things. We're part of their re-granting program. There are a bunch across the country where we get funding from them that we get to disperse to our local community here, which is really awesome. So if any of you guys are interested, feel free to send me a message on the chat or anything, and I can get in direct contact with you. Our applications are open actually right now, so it'll be funding projects, visual arts projects in Oklahoma, up to $10,000. So it's a really amazing opportunity if anyone is interested. And then you can also connect with us just to see the many other projects and programs that we do throughout the year. We have exhibitions. We have a studio tour coming up in Tulsa this summer. So if you guys are based in Tulsa or interested in seeing some of the community there, it's a great way to connect and like get to meet artists in person. So yeah, and I think Karis just plugged our website. So yeah, stay connected if you're interested. And thank you again, Caitlin, for letting us talk a little bit here. But I'll hand it back over to you guys.
Thank you. So we have Tara today. She's our guest, and she is a ethereal abstract artist. Ooh, is it Sugar Teas? Is that how you say?
Socrates.
Socrates. Oh, New York. She has been painting professionally since 2015 and has exhibited in various solo and group exhibitions in New York. Her work has also been featured by Obscured Art and New School magazine, among other publications. Tara also guides creatives on social media and on digging deeper into their creative genius, which is what she'll be talking about today. So welcome.
Hi, everyone. And I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for having me share with you guys today. And thank you, everybody, for coming and joining in. My name is Tara Bach. I am an ethereal artist and creative guide, founder of the Artist Social platform on Instagram. So the Artist Social is a platform I developed to support creatives in understanding how to take resources, free resources and tools like social media and use them in a creative lens to support and enhance your creativity. So today I want to specifically talk how you can grow on Instagram authentically, and the window of opportunity that Reels has specifically that you can lean into as a creative. And then we're going to go through some tips and examples of how you can actually create thoughtless content online. Take what you like, take what resonates, take what inspires you, what feels good, and anything else just like that's not for you, and just leave it behind. I did begin in 2015, and my journey and relationship with Instagram's been a building of a relationship. And what I mean by that is I kind of actually didn't even intend to be an artist. I was in art school and I was just kind of like sharing what I loved to do at its simplest form and really had no expectation of anything else but this childlike, oh, I made this, like, look, I made this. I didn't have any, this idea of like numbers and growth and all these like things we kind of are striving for these days. There was like a lot of innocence to my beginning on Instagram. And a lot has changed in the almost decade I've been in relationship with it. And so I just want to talk a little bit about that. So Instagram used to be an attractive type platform, and we really began to see its shift. And we see a lot of the arts community really feeling that shift about in 2020 when it started to release this feature of short form video and reels. And this shift, it's interesting, right? Because we're visual artists and we have this like amazing opportunity to use these platforms. And I just sometimes like think about, wow, our creative process is so easily leaning into the storytelling form of this video that we have the opportunity of doing these days. Nothing really about creation and this life force energy is stagnant like a photo. And I thought to myself, like, wow, what an opportunity for creatives to kind of like take it and use it as an extension of ourselves and our creativity and become like, use it as another paintbrush for ourselves. So as I was saying, so Instagram used to be this attractive type platform. That was when you were seeing like a faster growth in followers. You were seeing more of that like glossy, super polished highlight reel. And I like to kind of think of it as like the empty calorie of the internet kind of vibe. And then we kind of went through COVID and we noticed the shift happening. And although it kind of was asking us to step up and put a little bit more work in, it's more now in favor of creativity and the slow burn and slow growth. And I'd really like to talk a little bit more about that. As creatives, like the most detrimental thing you can do for your creativity is really try to force it into the box. And like literally like Instagram, look at the visual of it. It's like it's a box. And so like trying to keep up with this algorithm that's always going to be ever changing and like rapidly developing faster than humanly possible, like we don't want to do that. So what can we do? We can be our authentic creative selves and embrace all of those little simple things that already make us who we are. But the funny thing is being of this visual world and being always saturated in seeing and really enveloped in what everybody else is doing, we become so close to it that it's so easy to overlook just how unique and incredible like you truly are as a creative. And I always go back to my favorite writer, Charlie Kaufman's speech when he says, us as humans have this really deeply seated belief that it is us that is not that interesting. And because convincing ourselves that we are that interesting is probably not going to happen, just agree. Just completely take it off the table and say, perhaps I'm not that interesting, but I'm the only real thing that I have to offer to this world. And by offering ourselves up in the truest, simplest way that we can, in return, it really does do this profound service. And so here we find this window of opportunity. And this is turning those ordinary moments in our creative practice into this extraordinary ability to storytell. And this is where I get into like, how do we create this thoughtless content? So working with a lot of artists, they're always like, I feel like I don't know what to post or how to create reels or like all of the trying to figure it out or the point of views and that like flashiness. But we got to come back to really the simplicity of the story unfolding. And I want you to take a minute to kind of just sit with me and think about a painting process. Let's just talk about like, think of it in terms of a painting. And the whole thing really does have a beginning stage, a middle stage, and an end. And if we begin to kind of break it down into these little sections and welcome a viewer into our creative world, we have an opportunity to increase the value of what we are showing the world that we do. And I feel like a lot of times we're missing that we have the ability to connect on such a deeper level than just the idea of creating content or trying to get these numbers. And if we kind of begin to lean into that opportunity of connection and being able to show people another side of the value and the time that we take because we love what we do so much, it's going to translate to our viewers and to our audience, and people are going to want to like be invested in our work on another level. The key to thoughtless content as a creative is what I call just going with the documentation style. This takes all of the like, how do I figure it out way all out of the way. What is documentation style? Documentation style is just kind of unconsciously a little bit welcoming your camera or your creative lens into your studio as if it's a paintbrush, I like to say. So thinking about your creative process, and I like to break mine down into even just like the beginning painting parts of a section, because unlike what we see often online, my painting isn't finished within a 1-minute video. So I like to start with like, okay, what does the beginning of my day look like? You don't even have to just do your thing. So visualize what does the beginning of your day look like when you're creating? Do you have a studio that you go into, you turn your light on, you take your bags off, you set up your space? Or are you working at your kitchen table and you have to clear off your breakfast first and then bring out your art supplies? All of these moments of time, because I believe time is our greatest resource. All of these moments of time, even if you think like, oh, I don't have a beautiful studio space to show people, you're showing people that you show up in spite of. You're showing people that you take the time to make room out of your day and make room out of your life to carve it out to bring things into existence. And I think that profoundly translates to everybody else. So when we break down these little moments of time that we put into something and capture them in just little clips, we have the opportunity to tell the story about the work that we put in, because we don't ever want to undermine that. So inviting that camera into your studio, and just here are some tips on how you can take it for the ride. So when I think of creativity, and this is something I am a big believer about, creativity is life force energy. It is sacral. It's like located in our sacral center, and its purest, fastest way to tap into it is getting playful. So when I say like bring it along with your paintbrush, like allow yourself to like just see, what does it look like when like my paintbrush is like romantically experiment with this idea of your marks and pouring your water into your cup and loving what you do in this really exciting way. And it might seem kind of silly at first, but you actually remind yourself about how cool the things you do are just by kind of capturing them in these short moments. Some tips that I love to invite into this process is bringing in movement. Anytime your camera is not stagnant, like I like to like mix it up. So you might have just some clips of you being still mixed with a couple clips of like you kind of taking your camera in your hand and just moving it around like your space. Anything that invites movement keeps the viewer's attention and them continuously being engaged. Then also just using different views or angles, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy at all. My favorite thing is to set it and forget it, and I just put my camera there and I just allow it to be in my space and for maybe like a minute. And imagine if I sat, and if I think about it, I probably in my studio set my camera, mostly my iPhone, because I'm too lazy to think about having to do the whole fancy camera thing at this point. If I sat it through 5 different stages of, let's say, 1 hour in my studio, That's 5 full minutes that I can break down into like a very short clip that tells a story of what my 1 hour was like. And then I'm able to just explain in the simplest way what I'm doing right now. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to get creative with it. This is what I'm doing. And I actually had discovered this process myself as I began unrolling this documentation style of filming things. And the most interesting thing happened was my audience was like, wow, I've never seen what the painting process was really like, because it was changing so many times. And they're like, what's going to happen? And I'm like, I have no idea. And it just became almost like this little series, and people were invested. They wanted to see what was going to happen next and how this thing was going to unfold. And what was amazing was it really allowed me the space to slow down, which was kind of what I was looking for a while, because I don't know if anybody remembers, but at one point in time, the Instagram like algorithm, it was asking, like, the ideal was to have posting 3 pictures a day. And I mean, for me, that was something like I couldn't keep up with. And I was just like, man, 3 pictures, 3 captions of one painting that it doesn't change that much in one day. How many different views could I really post in a single photo? So this actually really allowed me to slow down and invite more senses into the creating and sharing process. And then I just always love that when we think about when we're sharing online, staying away from anything that feels like trendy, like not trying to lean into trending audios. We want to stay appropriate to our style, something that's going to make people deepen their connection with what we're doing specifically. And again, it is that simple. You are authentic when you're just like, this is what I'm doing, sharing what you're working on in the now. You can explain why in short captions or in short words, but it just keeps that momentum, and it keeps your ability to build this foundation and just continue along wherever you are at, and not trying to keep up with anything else around you. So I just wanted to invite you to look at a couple examples of some artists that I thought did a great example of this process that I'm explaining. And we have this artist, Mia Pensa, and she here is going to take you on a ride of just her beginning part of her process. And I also love in this video how she shows how she kind of messes up and then comes back to her drawing board in just a short few clips.
I get this feeling, I can't fight it. Just like the colors on the inside of my eyelids. But I'll be fine. I'm still
And then we see here at the end on text, she says, until next time. And that itself is telling people, stay tuned, there's going to be more. Here we have,
where we are today is where I want to stay. Leave worries far away when you're here with me. I should just enjoy this time. Yes, we end up leaving all this behind. I just need to start worrying.
so here we had Noelle Miller, and she does a great job at kind of taking those quick clips and then kind of showing the final here. But again, I think this video in itself is 20 seconds long, and she does a great job at moving her camera, and she's not using a tripod at all. She's just literally got her camera in her hand. So that just goes to show, what do we need? We need an iPhone, some good fun music to invite somebody on this playful journey, and just a couple clips. And then here we have another artist who, again, this one, she's showing us just the beginning part of her process. I love that authentic little artist stretch she includes in there. But again, it's simply just set up, and then later on, I'm sure. So the point of the document style is to be in your studio and not have it interfere in your creative practice, but allow yourself to kind of do your thing. And then later on, you have the opportunity to kind of cut these clips together. And then here I have an example that I put together that is just showing the experience that you can give somebody of a final painting that is different from just having that photograph, that one photograph view. This is just literally me standing in there. I staged a couple things and it's a landscape, so it's kind of bringing you along this journey in a couple short clips. And so there you have the opportunity to actually showcase the details in your work, and you're able to kind of make this quick video without having to do anything much at all besides kind of, it was one continuous video that I just clipped together a couple things here. And so as I'm talking about all these clips and editing, I thought I would share with you a couple of my favorite editing apps that are really friendly and simple to use. Here we have the app CapCut. It's probably my favorite. Most of the time you just add in the video clips, and then you're able to trim the clips to be able to showcase your favorite parts, and then just save it. I like to do it this way, editing outside of the platforms like Instagram or TikTok or anything like that, because oftentimes these videos that we create, I think it's a great idea to share them across multiple platforms. Like right now, Facebook, was it Facebook Reels, do they call it? Facebook has like a similar feature that is that's really successful right now. And even just sharing the videos I create and mostly put on Instagram, sharing them there, they get even more of a view right now. And I think anytime you're putting your heart and work into anything, I believe, especially as an artist, we do it so that we make sure it has the opportunity to be seen. Then we also have InShot, which is very similar to CapCut. It's a really simple editing app. You don't need any kind of fancy, you don't need anything fancy. I find just knowing how to cut the videos and be able to shorten the length of them is substantial for making really great video content. And if you really are just not feeling like you want to put too much time into it, we have Video Leap here. And Video Leap is a great kind of drag and drop. They have templates already pre-made, and you're able to play around with these templates that people have already created for you. And this just kind of simplifies a lot of the process. So I think the next thing that I know a lot of people struggle with is how do we get up the courage to start sharing, sharing in a new way, sharing from behind the paintbrush and getting kind of in front of a camera. First, I just want to let you know that there's no way that you have to do this. There are so many creative ways that you're able to do this online. You do not have to be in front of your camera if you're not comfortable. You don't have to talk on camera if you're not comfortable. But what I will tell you is you do the brave thing. You do the one brave thing, and it becomes this onion effect, and you just slowly peel back these parts of yourself and do these things that you never thought you would be doing as an artist. But when you welcome this new form of creativity with curiosity and this mindset of like, what if I get into this, and where could this take me, and look at possibility in that form. I think a lot of magic happens there. And my favorite my favorite way to go about if I'm not feeling confident at sharing something, and let me tell you, I will never share something that I do not that doesn't uphold my own values. That's not the case. It's just, sometimes, like I said, being behind a camera is not, a normal thing. And I agree, like, didn't necessarily like sign up for it, but doing the brave thing, sometimes you just got to ghost it and post it. Sometimes you throw it up there and then you're just like, I need to detach, or you close up your app and then you come back. And I just promise you this, that I've never had an experience that I've had to panic and take something down. It's all been about just me getting braver and braver each time I share, and opening up a little bit at a time and deepening that connection. And what it's been able to, like, the process for me has been able to do is then start being able to share some of my storytelling and have my face behind a camera, or be able to talk to you guys today. And these are all things I never thought I would ever do, but it all has been building up a lot of strength and courage and resilience within myself, that who knows where all of these skills and tools are going to be supporting me along my way in the future. Do the hard, uncomfortable things, and help build that resilience within yourself. And that's my little presentation. So thank you all so much for coming today, and you're welcome to follow me and see some of my creative videos on Instagram at bach.tara, or come and check out the Artist Social, where I'm going to be continuing to share a bunch of different tips and ways that can be supportive to the arts community, and the various different avenues that you can take specifically to enhance your creativity and be able to get that visibility that I know you deserve, and I know that is capable being an artist online today.
Thank you so much, Tara. That was awesome. Do we have any questions from the audience? Anyone have any come up? Or if you just want to chat about social media strategy, Tara's a great guide. I'm so impressed by especially what you teach about like TikTok and like getting people to be brave and like use the apps. And so do you have any first, does anyone have any questions? You can raise your hand or just unmute, or pop them in the chat if you feel comfortable.
Yeah, if there's anything specific to, like, anything you find yourself getting hung up on, or anything that kind of feels like it prevents you from stepping into the position you want to be, anything like that, just let me know, because there's so many different ways to go about this, and it's not just about the way I shared today. There's a lot of different problem solving that we could do together.
I have something, and I don't know if I'm assuming that with the nature of your work, you haven't experienced this, but maybe you have. But do you know yourself or anyone who maybe has experienced like issues with censorship and like making content that's not like family friendly, and then like having to deal with, like, I often get posts, like sometimes I'll get one removed of a painting, like if I'm a figure painter, and so it just kind of, sometimes it's hard to navigate that. I don't know if you've ever like encountered somebody or things like that, but it's tough to try to like work around for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I've seen your work, and I can absolutely imagine, I don't know who's in charge of how things get taken a look at online, because quite honestly, I've had enough of, I've stayed away from TikTok because of this problem, not even because of like censorship of my art, but they just censor like a lot of random things too that are totally not related, and then it deters you from wanting to do the thing. The only thing I could say that might be supportive, because you are, the figurative work is finding those angles and those moments, and trying to embrace, maybe a sneak maybe a sneak attack. Like you give them all those tastes of the moments of your studio practice, and then at the end maybe be able to get that final part in. But I do think it's a really big issue. It is a really big issue with the arts community and figurative painters. And I'm not sure exactly what the long-term solution for that is at this moment, but I know a lot of people that have a hard time getting everything taken down.
I wonder too if like making more reels, maybe those things don't get noticed as much. Cause I sometimes I promote posts, and I did notice that when I had the same content in a reel, they approved the promotion, and then when it was just a static photo, they didn't. So maybe, I don't know, maybe like moving image is helpful there too.
It is. I can imagine it being a really big struggle. I don't know if there's a solid answer because, again, like everything really does change very rapidly with these online platforms, that one day that might work, and to be honest, the next day that might not work. It just kind of does depend. And I would hate for you to put all this time and effort into something and then, feel deterred. The one thing I could encourage is to make sure that if you have a website or something, and if you do make these reels, like if you can, absolutely have them on your website, that could be a great thing to like lead people to.
Very true. Thank you. That's helpful.
I have a question, Tara, about something really caught me that you said was like that it's always rapidly changing. And I felt like a sense of exhaustion like in my soul when you said that. And I'm curious if you like have any support for like artists like that who like have been continuing to show up and like maybe have had traction in the past, but like it's not working anymore, and they're feeling like maybe some social media burnout, like by not getting that, the feedback they're wanting. So do you have any advice for that?
Something I do love about the algorithm, right, is it actually doesn't hold a grudge in a way that if you do decide to step back, because I've actually done this more often than not these days, is you do decide to step back and take a break from social media. And when you do feel like, okay, I want to be back again. Now with the way it is, it doesn't take as long as it used to kind of catch back in. It kind of, what happens is it might take a post or two because it just doesn't remember where to place you. I always have like, when I do decide like I want to come back, because I've taken like months off like sometimes, and I've never had an issue. There's been like this magic moment that happens. It's usually like after the second or third posting, I get more views than I would have imagined. And so just know that it's not holding a grudge against you if you can like kind of maybe plan for having like a pre-post or two to kind of like warm up the algorithm to like let it know, hey, what's up, I'm back. And then it kind of just sticks you back in, but it's not gonna like forget you. It just needs to know where to put you again.
How do you stay like I guess how do you stay motivated to keep posting on all of the different platforms? Like, do you continue to do that, or do you pick one? Do you find one's better than the other?
Again, like with the burnout thing, it's very real. So I kind of just I'm really about authentically leaning into like how I feel. If I feel drawn to share and I have the energy to share on multiple platforms, I'm like, okay, why not? But most of the time I like to lean into my favorite ones like Instagram. And like I said, like Facebook is actually really, has been really supportive right now. And, so I have been just sharing, like throwing them up there just to see what happens, because I already have the content there. But I do tend to just stick with one at a time. I don't, my capacity is only so much. It's not so much about that fast growth. We're not really trying to reach numbers. We're really trying to nurture the people that we already have and that are already invested in our work. So kind of sticking with the people that are already here for us is always my turn to.
That's beautiful. Thinking about like that connection and sticking for the people who are here for us. One thing I've noticed too is like actually like a disconnection between social media and like real life. You know what I mean? Like I feel like some artists have that issue too, like where it feels like a different art world almost online than it does in person. Do you have any advice for artists who want to connect bring that online energy into the real space, like into our daily life, or any advice for like bridging that gap?
Bridging the gap.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little story. When I had first been on social media, I was really like having this mindset of like wanting to be in the galleries, and like I was doing all the things. I was part of the art queens. I was like, really trying to like succeed, right? And I remember one day coming across this piece of paper in my studio, and like it said something on it, on this goals list I had made, that like the big dream goal was something about being in a museum or something like that. And I was like, who the fuck wrote this? So I was like, I don't care about being in a museum. Like that's not. So I think what my point here I'm trying to say is like, understand who you are, and like who are you trying to connect with? Are you trying to connect with other like-minded artists that are about real life? Because when you are bridging that gap and incorporating like any part of yourself, and this is something I enjoy this is something I enjoy doing, is I love to be creative in every avenue of my life. Like you should see the way I make a sandwich. It's ridiculous. So just kind of bringing that in and knowing that you're going to connect to the other people that get you. And that is the goal. And knowing like me learning through all this trial and error and figuring out like, I'm not really trying to be in like the gallery thing is really cool. Like I could still do that by being just who I am, because of these platforms really are geared towards the users and the people who we are connecting with. So the more we have like the people behind our back and like showing up for ourselves, the galleries are now kind of, I'm not trying to offend anybody if you're like, they're actually, it's going to transition, I promise you this, to, how I can't remember the last time I had filled out an application, they didn't ask for my social media. And they, the people who show up on your social media and these average people we're making connections with, they're the ones that are going to push us forward, and I feel like they're being overlooked.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, social media is such a big part of that, like that application and like presence. Like is what, yeah, those bigger entities are looking for a lot of times. So that's a follow-up question I have for you from that. And I know that some of the people in this call have asked is like, how do you know, I don't know if you mentioned boundaries, but like, how do you know, like, how much is too much, or how much is that threshold of oversharing? Like maybe you want to be really vulnerable with your art community, but maybe not for these institutions that are looking at your social. Like where do you draw that line, and like how do you navigate that boundary?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. For myself, I know that I go through periods of time where I'm comfortable getting vulnerable publicly. And I know there's times that I don't feel comfortable, or I don't know, my creativity doesn't work in a way that is always accessible. And so like last year, I was finding myself really getting deep into my poetry, and I was able to incorporate that in my videos. And then I wasn't, and I didn't have anything deep or maybe I was going through something really deep and I didn't want to share, or I wasn't ready to, and I didn't have to. And I knew that throughout time and space, and just leaning into like what feels good in my body. Like, I think that's always a good thing to check into, and like always check in, like, why am I doing this? Am I seeking like outside approval? Because I'll catch myself doing it. I'll catch myself being like, I'm a visual artist. I know my stuff is meant to be seen, and try to like force it out there. But that's not allowing the creativity and the process to like marinate and really make that magic happen.
Ariana said you don't do as much work with galleries. Does your social media platform help you connect directly with people who want to buy your work more than other traditional methods like galleries and shows?
Yeah, so I go back and forth working with galleries and not. I'm a mom of 3 kids, and so like when I like love the fact that I've been able to sell 90% of my work throughout my like Instagram and on my online space. It's been amazing. Do I still have that love to be in a gallery and have the exhibits? Yes. So I kind of just position myself in, going for the calls of art when I'm available, or having my work in galleries when I feel like they're a good fit, but really tuning into like, what do I have energy for? What's the best fit for my work? And being able to like balance that kind of experience. I haven't yet had any issues with it like being a problem I haven't had any kind of cross issues with it. All I know is that what I do love about being able to take hold of my social media is I have the creative authority to show up however I want. And that I think is so important, that nobody takes my voice that way, and nobody is kind of, I'm not doing it for anything else but my own passion and creativity.
Yeah, that feels so powerful. It's like it always comes back to you, like your why, like and what you're grounded in.
And And it's amazing. I've seen this movement not only happen with galleries, but in like big time in the music industry. I oftentimes look to the music industry and what's kind of happening there as a mirror of what's happening in the art world itself, because I think they're so similar. And you see a lot of artists, I mean, like Taylor Swift buying her own rights, or I love like Russ. I think it's just Russ. He doesn't have a label and he's always putting out his own music, and his fans behind him, those people that really connect to him, are the ones that he's like been able to get the same standards and like the same accolades as anybody else, because he puts his creativity first.
Kara said, yeah, I feel like I'm also seeing a lot of merchants becoming independent versus consignment. Yeah, I think the power shift for sure. I definitely see that as well.
And I believe it's definitely going to be something that continues to grow and to happen.
I'm just going to say it's so amazing that you have 3 children and still manage to make time to do art. And I was just going to ask, how much time do you think that you spend like every week creating video content for social media? Because I've done like very little, and honestly, it is kind of fun because it's a different like part. You can kind of view it as like a different part of your artistic practice. So it's like another creative element, but it does take a lot of work. So I was just curious about that.
So let's see. I normally have 3 studio days. Like I normally have 3 studio days carved out for myself, and I will like set my camera up and then just forget it, like I said, and then I'll find myself taking the time, like I'll sit at the school bus stop and then I'll just like be editing there, and any kind of like moments that I feel inspired to be able to kind of piece together these clips. But as far as time, and it's definitely difficult to say, because sometimes I'll be stealing 5 minutes in the studio and be able to make like the most of those 5 minutes, using this method of filming. Can I ask, when you are thinking about creating content, are you kind of coming in with like this creative like point of view and trying to like form like the scenario sometimes?
I don't know. I think have taken kind of a little bit of the approach that you have, that I think just because, I don't know, because I work full time and am trying to make art, and then the social media is just like another part of it that I'm like, oh, sometimes I feel like I don't have time for it. And so I feel like I have kind of gotten a little bit into the practice of like just using like images of things that I already have, or like just short little videos to put something together, instead of trying to, yeah, make it a whole big production. And I think it definitely is easier than, yeah, trying to just do too much. You can just really make it simple and it's effective too. So yeah, and I really like your perspective on that, because I feel like it's something that I've kind of been subconsciously doing, but like hearing you talk about it in this way is a really good perspective.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, it's like going through just those times that you're just like really not into it, or the times that you're like, oh, I don't have the energy or the capacity for this right now. Having all the like those clips or like whatever you have captured just still there for whenever you are ready, because I've found it really interesting to be able to kind of go back into like the archives and piece together like moments from the past, and be able to really appreciate my own creative growth that way, and then be able to share that also if I feel called to. So just because you like are like, oh, I've been in the studio creating and, you know, not really like sharing everything right now, you still have it for whenever it calls to you and you want to come back to it. And that's another part I love about that way of processing the video stuff.
I agree. I was going to follow up too and say, like, especially in line with what, you know, Tara, you're teaching, like the everyday moments, like type of documentation, like, and I think that's so true, is like taking the pressure and like the expectation of making a big production out of it, and just really just like being mindful of what you're doing and like capturing those little moments of magic that you kind of overlook, right? And like, and yeah, and then you go back and you're like, oh, my whole camera roll's full of material I can craft together. So yeah, it's like, it's just like that mindfulness and presence of those tiny moments, right?
Yeah, because it's true. Like you really don't need much to bring in a story, like any kind of storyline. And I remember like really feeling that when my kids were like sick for like 2 weeks straight and I wasn't able to create anything. And I was just like hungry to make something. And I was like, well, I can make videos. Like I can like I was just sitting there like with these sick kids like sleeping on me. And I like really was like, oh, this is actually really fun. And then being away from my studio and then putting together these videos got me like even more hungry and excited to be in my own process and not worried about the outside world and what other people were doing. It called me back to like my own creative juice instead of being like saturated and being like, oh my gosh, look at all these other artists like creating and they have this opportunity, and like having this like archive of like my own genius really like lit me back up and got me excited to be back in the studio.
Yeah, using it to like fuel you. Yes.
Yeah. It's so cool. It's so cool. Like you could fuel yourself and not like get that from looking elsewhere.
Man, that was so good. Thank you so much, Tara.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for everyone who came. It was lovely to have you and lovely to have Tara share. These will be added to our online database, and I think OVAC will also share it afterwards. So the recording will be out there and we'll be sending it out. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Everybody have a great day.
Bye.